Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be painting this watercolor golden forest, so grab your paints and let's begin. For supplies, I'll be using a size 10 Princeton brush. This will be for the majority of the painting. I also have some saran wrap. I'm going to tell you what we're going to use this for later. And then just to wet my paper to begin with, because this is going to be a wet on wet technique, I'm using a size 20 by Princeton. And then for colors, I have yellow ochre, I have burnt sienna, raw umber, Payne's grey and burnt umber. First, by wetting our paper, water all the way down. I'm using Baohong cold pressed. This is fine grain paper. Take some yellow ochre and I'm going to put this in the middle, just like so. And this is going to be the lightest part. The center of your page is going to be the lightest part of your forest. And then going in with some burnt sienna, I'm now going to put that towards the sides, on either sides. Like so. I'm going to take a little bit more yellow ochre. I do want it to be quite vibrant. And remember, when you're using watercolor, it's always lighter at the beginning. It's always darker when it's wet, and then as it dries, it's going to be even lighter. So always go 2 to 3 shades darker than you want. And that way, when it dries, you'll have color that you want. Then going in with a mix of burnt umber and raw umber, we're going to be adding darkest shade of our forest. And then we're just going to go down in a straight diagonal line so we can see where our floor is, where our forest floor is. And I'm just going to go back and add some more burnt sienna, because I can see already it is drying quite lightly. And then going in with more burnt umber. I'm going to add a bit of burnt sienna to it to warm it up. This is quite cool. And then we're going to forest our floor. We're going to floor our forest like so. Then just to smooth out the middle here, I'm just going to go in with a clean wet brush and just blend the colors by putting my brush through it. As you can see, the yellow ochre is very pale. So we're going to go in with a bit more. So we have a bit more colour. Switching to my size 10, I'm going to go in with a little bit of burnt sienna and water it down. And I'm going to start making trees. We're just going to be doing the trunks, so I'm just going to be brushing through lightly. So some of the trees are going to be a bit straight, some are going to be slightly bended. And this is so that when it dries, we have this effect of trees in the background. Like so. And you can go with using the thinner part of your brush, and you can just add a thin tree so that it appears further away. And then now we're going to need to make a darker mix of burnt sienna, raw umber and burnt umber, and slightly dilute it. And we're going to have a tree starting here I'm just bringing it up. And then maybe another tree on the other side. Like so. And then we're going to add some forest moss. This, make sure we're doing it when it's wet so that it has the effect of being misty. If we do it on dry, we're going to get a very harsh look. Then we're going to do maybe a bigger tree here on this side. Remember, this is just the first layer. This is just for us to go over where our trees are going to be placed and adding the first layer for the smoothness whilst everything is wet. You can go over your trees. You can see that they are drying quite pale. You can even go at the back. Add some trees there. Maybe one here. And adding a tree here. Maybe quite a big one. And so this one is going to have some branches coming off of it. And then maybe we're going to have one large one here on the side. This is going to frame our painting. Just adding some moss. I think we'll add another tree here as well. Make this one a bit bigger. We want to leave some space clear so that we get the contrast of dark and lightness in the forest. So maybe I'm going to add a tree here as well. Maybe add a tree here. And then we're going to have to wait and let this dry. I'm just going to add some branches for our tree. Also our big one here. What I'm going to quickly do is I'm going to take just some burnt umber and I'm going to push this where we've created the moss, and I'm going to add a little bit of darkness to each of the trees so that as it dries we can see where we've put the shape of the tree. So just adding some lines. This is all going to blend out very smoothly. It dries, it's going to look fine. Just so that as it dries, we don't lose sight of what we've done. You can even take your brush and do some grass shapes. Add a bit of shading here towards the bottom of the tree. We had another tree here as well. A tree here. Now, as we get to the back trees, we do not want them to be too dark. So have a light hand. Use a light amount of pressure and then go in with a clean brush and we're going to soften the line. because the trees at the back, we want them to be very, very soft and very mild. I had a tree here. And just soften it. I'm going to add a very light tree in the back here that is maybe kind of slightly bended. And then we can have a branch that comes up, which is starting on this way, starting from the bottom. And bringing it down. Adding the forest moss using a dabbing motion. Some shading towards the bottom. Do some grass flicks. And don't forget to add some branches. So now you can see as I'm painting, the paper is drying, which is fine. It just means I have to react quickly. Okay, so that's our first layer. We're going to leave it like that and wait for it to completely dry. Now going in with our second layer, we're going to be taking raw umber, a little bit of burnt sienna. Changed my brush to a size 6 just so that I could have a finer point and less water in my brush. And now going over the trees, we're going to leave the ones at the back and just focus on the ones that we've put the lines on so that we can define those. Like so. We're going to be repeating just like we've done with this tree, and what we're also going to add is a few branches. These we're not really going to see at the end, so they don't have to be perfect, but this is just to add some volume to the forest, so it is not just lots and lots of trees. And then doing the same thing with the rest of the trees, we're just going to be repeating the process and going in, and we're going to be adding some strokes of darker color and some strokes of lighter color. So going in with just a bit of burnt umber, you can see I'm using it just to add a bit of definition. And then going in with a clean brush, I'm going in to soften the edges and add a few branches, like so. We're just going to keep repeating this until we have finished all of the trees, and we'll keep repeating the same thing. And as we get closer and closer towards the edge of the page, we're going to get darker and darker with our color. So when we want to make our brown really dark, we're going to add some Payne's Grey. So I'm just going to add a little bit of Payne's Grey now, and that's going to darken my brown. Okay. And we're just going to bring that forward. And we're going to add some branches. And I'm just using sort of like a squiggly line, and I'm pushing with a lot of pressure. And then going in with a clean brush, I'm going to soften the edge of the tree. And then also we're going to add some flicks for some grass. And I want this tree to be slightly darker. So we're going to go in again with some burnt umber and just darken up the edge of that tree. I'm just going to make our tree darker. And then going in with a clean brush, I'm going to lighten it. And then we can add some grass, a little bit of moss. I don't have too much paint on my brush, just so that when I press my brush onto the paper, it's not going to be very, very dark. And I'm maybe going to add another tree using some burnt sienna. But I'm going to go, I don't want to make it too dark, but I want to add a slightly more defined tree towards the back. And then I'm maybe going to add another tree towards here. And then just using a clean brush, this is just going to soften the tree and also not allow it to be so saturated and dark. Maybe another one here. And then taking a clean brush, just going to smooth out the lines. Okay, so now going in with our darkest trees, I'm going to be using burnt umber and Payne's grey. We'll be going in. And these ones we're going to have them be very dark. So just fill in the shape of the tree. Add a bit of the moss. And I'm just using this dabbing technique so that we get texture and it's not a flat wash. And then don't forget the strokes of the grass. And then we're going to go in with some branches. So we're going to add some branches to our tree. And just fill it in with the burnt umber and Payne's grey mix. If you feel like you want to darken some of the other trees, you can go back. I may do that on some of the other trees as well, because this one is very dark compared to our other ones. branch shapes, they are just very bendy and curvy, and they have no right or wrong way to do them. So just let your brush fall onto the paper and decide which way it's going to bend. It will look nice whichever way you do it. I'm just going in more Payne's grey and just adding some grass to be at the front of the forest. And now for the last part. We've got two more things to do. So actually we're going to be going in with just a bit of burnt sienna and a size 6, and we're just going to be adding some grass, and we're going to be even adding it towards the lightest parts of the forest and towards where the trees are. And we're using just a very diluted wash of burnt sienna. We just want to give the forest floor some more definition. And then going in with a bit more concentrated mix, we're going to add some more grass to where the moss and the trees are. This is going to bring the trees and the forest together. So we're going to now move on to the next step, which is using saran wrap to create our tree forest leaves. So we're just going to muddle up the saran wrap like this, and we're going to prepare a mix of burnt sienna, raw umber, and then we're going to dip the saran wrap into the paint mix, just like so. I'm going to be picking it up and dabbing it down. We're just going to be repeating this over and over again. This is just a very easy way to get a lot of leaves. You just push it onto the paper. And you just keep adding leaves. And as you can see, this is going to give a very nice tree effect. This time just using burnt umber so that the leaves have a 2-dimensional color. We want the trees to be quite full, so you just keep repeating this until you have the amount of leaves that you would want. And we can also add some more leaves. And then go on top of that. Like so. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. This is really easy and I hope you had a fun time painting this. Please give this video a like and consider subscribing, and I will see you in my next video.